Enthusiasm, in the kind of person who loved birthday surprises. But I never expected this one to scare me out of my wits. Chapter 5:18. As I shifted on the bed, I felt the warmth of another person. Knowing it was Carly, I wrapped my arms around her and draped one of my legs over her. I pressed my body against her back when I pulled her closer to me. Wow, her shoulders are actually pretty wide and masculine. I took a deep breath as snuggled next to her. Wait, this doesn't smell like Carly. I immediately kicked the person off the bed and quickly sat up. Who the hell is it? I looked around frantically. Yep, I'm definitely in Carly's room. The person I kicked got up slowly, revealing themselves from under the sheets wrapped around them that got pulled down with them when they fell. Anthony emerged from the covers and looked at me, his face a bit red. Hey, why are you blushing? I yelled, trying to cover my legs and upper body, which were exposed since I was wearing comfortable shorts and a black tank top. Wait, I don't remember changing. Did you change my clothes? I asked nervously, holding the covers close. What? No, I swear. It was Carly, he yelled, putting his hands up in surrender as his face turned more noticeably red. You better not be lying. If I find out it was you, you can kiss your goodbye. Just as I about to kick him, the door flew open and Carly, to my agent extraordinaire, Marilyn Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And Carlos entered the room and began singing, Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Lumpy Lori, Pooh. Happy birthday to you. They all sang together. Carly ran to me and hugged me, causing us to fall backwards onto the bed. I hugged her back as the realization that it was my birthday hit me hard. How could I forget a day so important? Even Carly remembered. When she pulled away, she had a wide grin on her face. Wait. Are you sure it's today? Still a little surprised, she smacked my arm and replied, What do you mean, are you sure it's today? Don't tell me you didn't remember your own birthday. I laughed nervously. Carly rolled her eyes and a smile formed on her lips again. She kneeled down next to her bed and pushed aside Anthony, who was curled up into a ball, hugging his knees. She rolled him away and reached under her bed, pulling out a sparkly silver gift bag. Everyone clapped and cheered when she handed it to me. This is only the first present, and it's not as big as the second one, but I thought I should give it to you now so you can use it. You can get your second present after school, she said with a wink. You didn't have to, I said in a small voice, feeling bad they went through so much trouble for me. Of course I did. You're basically my sister. You sleep here more than you do at your house, and in closer to you than I am with my idiot brother. Even my parents like you, she bubbled. That's true. I almost love you more than Carly, Iris said with a grin on her face. Hey, Carly yelled, glaring at her mom. Her mom laughed and said, I'm just messing with you, sweetie. I love both of you. And I guess you too, Anthony. And Honey rolled out of the room, still curled into a ball. Everyone went silent for a while as they watched him. After he was gone, everyone continued chatting as if nothing happened. Anyways, open it, Carly cheered. I opened the bag and carefully took out the blue tissue paper inside, revealing a tight, black long-sleeve shirt that stops right at the waist. Under it was a perfectly folded red skirt that reached a little under mid-thigh and some black tights. Then, I saw a pair of long, black boots that reached a little above the knee. Under all of it was a $100 gift card to the South Erini restaurant that I really love. It took me forever to choose that outfit. It's so hard finding a good outfit for you, especially since you think you don't look good in anything, which obviously isn't true since you have a nice body. Carly jabbered, making me feel slightly embarrassed with her last words. She continued, And my gift card. I know how much you love that place and would prefer it over a gift card to a clothes store. So that part was easy. She knows me so well. Thanks, Carly. I thanked her quietly as I pulled her into a hug. She patted my back and said, To my agent extraordinaire, Marilyn Nilben, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Get dressed and meet us downstairs. And hurry before it gets late. We have a big breakfast plan. I nodded and everyone left the room, closing the door behind them. I entered her bathroom and took a quick 5-minute shower. To our agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I dried myself with one of my towels I have at her house, since I stay here so often. After I put on my underwear and dried my hair, I wrapped the towel around me and walked back out to her bedroom. I took the bag with the outfit she got me and laid everything out. I first slipped on the black shirt. Then I put on the black tights, which were actually not as bad as I thought. I thought they would be more uncomfortable. To our agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I put on the red skirt and zipped it up from the back. Once I had finished with the skirt, I sat down on the bed and put on the long, above, the knee boots. They had a bit of heel, but not so much I called them walk. I stood up and felt a little taller with the heel. Now I can make more fun of Carly because of her height. Now finished, I walked out of her room and joined everyone in the kitchen. When I walked in, the smell of freshly made waffles and bacon filled my nose. I looked at the dining table and noticed it was filled with food. There was waffles, French toast, bacon and eggs, muffins, and a cake that said Happy 18th Birthday, Lauren, right at the center of all the food. I noticed Nathan sitting next to Carly. When he noticed I was staring, he smiled at me. I looked to his left and noticed there were crutches leaning on his chair. I guess the injury was more serious than I thought. Didn't think a chair could hurt someone that much. Happy birthday, Hoen. Why is he here? I asked as I looked at Carly. We can't celebrate your birthday without one of your best friends. Carly beamed. She was in a good mood today. I looked at the crutches and asked, are those really necessary? Yes, they are. It hurts to walk, and to make it worse I can't cough for 2 weeks. I rolled my eyes and said, you'll be fine. It's not that long anyways. I took my seat next to Carly and looked at Carlos, who was busy serving all the food he had just made. Thank you, Carlos. You didn't have to go through all the trouble just for me, I said while playing with the ends of my skirt. I'm not used to wearing skirts or dresses, so I'm feeling a bit more self-conscious than usual. Lauren, I went through all the trouble because it's you, he said with a smile. I thanked him once again, returning a smile. Thank you. See, Lauren, you look good in that outfit. I knew it would suit you. Don't you think so too? Anthony, Carly asked with a smirk on her face as she nudged Anthony from across the table. His eyes grew wide and his face turned red, causing Carly and Nathan to laugh. I didn't really know what was going on, but seeing Anthony like this was quite rare and funny. When Carlos finally sat down after he was finished serving everyone, we all began our big meal. Sorry to bring this up now, but could you please excuse us with your parents? Nathan, Carly was really rude when your family came over on Monday. She shouldn't have kicked you out like that. Iris apologized to Nathan. I noticed Carly tensed up a little bit and looked down, while Nathan's face turned a light shade of pink. It's all right. It was partially my fault. He said, awkwardly. What happened on Monday? And why hasn't either of them said anything? We all continued our delicious breakfast with an uneasy aura. Well, that is until everyone started making fun of Anthony, making it lively all over again. I took my last bite, then leaned back in my chair. I placed my hands on my stomach and looked at the dining table where there had previously been piles of food. Now all that was left were loads of empty plates. I looked at Carly, who was looking around for anything else to eat. She frowned when she didn't find anything. Even all of the cake had been eaten. We should get going. It's getting late, Nathan said, checking the time on his phone. Wait. We still have something to do. Carly shouted as she grabbed me by the arm and dragged me back to her room. She sat me down at her desk and pulled out her makeup bag. What are you doing with that? I asked nervously. You need your finishing touches, she said excitedly. I tried to struggle, but it was no use. There's no stopping Carly once she gets like this. She quickly applied light eyeshadow, mascara, and matte dusty rose lipstick. Once she was done, she rushed over to her floor mirror and looked herself over. She straightened her clothes, then rushed over to her bed and picked up our backpacks which were on the floor, right next to her bed. She tossed my backpack to me. Then we both quickly rushed downstairs. Iris spotted us and said, Nathan's outside waiting for you. Girls, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Bye, Mom, Carly said as she hurried outside. Bye, Iris. Thank you once again, I said with a smile before following Carly outside. No problem, she called out before the front door shut loudly. Carly and I jumped into Nathan's roofless car. She sat in the front with him while I sat in the back. I hate sitting in the back, but whenever we're in Nate's car, I always end up sitting here. Plus, his crutches are laid out on the seat, making it uncomfortable for me. Wait, should he even be driving? Is it okay for you to drive? Sure to you let Carly drive instead? Worried for our safety. No way in hell am I letting her drive my precious car. I can drive. I just need to press with my heel instead of my foot. Besides, it's just my ankle that hurts, he said as he started the car. If we crash and die, I'm gonna bring you back to life and kill you with my bare hands, I threatened, not entirely convinced he was fit to be driving right now. Was his doctor seriously okay with this? We started our drive to school, and Carly flipped through the radio stations, trying to find a good song. Nate was driving pretty well, so I worried less about whether we were gonna make it out of this alive. While Carly was searching for a good song. Hey Carly, why was Anthony in the bed while I was sleeping? In all the excitement, I had forgotten to ask her about it earlier. She laughed and replied, I thought that if someone else was lying in bed with you, you wouldn't notice I was gone. And it worked. You didn't realize it was him until after an hour. By that time, we already had everything prepared. You know, you could have just used a pillow and I would have been fine, I remarked it. Using Anthony was more interesting. She grinned. Oh, I was gonna get you a present, but I figured giving you money would be better, Nate said as he made a left turn. He grabbed an envelope inside the drawer in between him and Carly with one hand while the other remained on the wheel. He tossed it back, and it landed on my lap. Inside was 2 $1 bills and a small card that read, Don't worry, they're real. I smiled after reading the card and said, You didn't have to. You know. Well, I couldn't not get you anything. I closed the envelope and put it into my backpack, remembering what Iris had said about Carly kicking out Nathan. So what happened on Monday? Both of them stiffened. I leaned my head into the space between Nate and Carly's seats. Carly was looking out the window with pink-stained cheeks while Nate was looking ahead at the road, trying to act like he didn't know what I was talking about. Why won't they tell me anything? They shouldn't be keeping me in the dark like this. You know what? I'm using my birthday card. You guys have to tell me what's going on, I demanded. Carly whined. No, not the birthday card. That's not fair. Yes, it is. I'm choosing to use it now. Remember when we went to a restaurant for your birthday and you ate everything there? Then used your birthday card so I could pay the $250. That wasn't fair, I mentioned. I refuse. Nathan denied, acting like a little kid who was ordered to wash his hands before dinner. You can't. I'm using my birthday card. Remember we said that no matter what it was we were asked to do, we had to do it if one of us decided to use our birthday card, I declared. Carly let out a sigh and hesitantly said, I guess there's no way around it. Nathan looked at her, then back at the road. He didn't say anything, but he nodded. saying it was okay for her to tell me. Carly explained. On Monday, my mom invited him and his family to dinner. She sent me to get something from her room to show it to his mom, and Nathan came with me. It was at the top shelf of her closet, and Nathan made a short joke about me and said he would get it since I was tall enough. So I pushed him away and said I would get it. Then all the boxes fell on me, and I landed on top of him. That's when he found Carly's baby pictures where she was completely naked. She got angry and kicked me out, and dinner ended short. Mate butted in. Huff, that's it. That's what you were acting all nervous about. I yelled in disbelief. What did you expect? Nate asked as Carly looked down and began whittling her thumbs. I shrugged as Nate parked his car in the parking lot. When he turned off the engine, Carly and I got out. She grabbed his crutches from the back and handed them to him. He said as he took them from her. He slowly stood up and began walking. Carly and I walked next to him at his pace. When we entered the building, a heavenly scent made its way to my nose. I stopped walking and faced the direction the smell was coming from. What's wrong? Carly asked as she stopped and faced me. Nothing. I just need to use the bathroom, I said as the intoxicating scent was starting to drive me insane. Do you want me to go with you? No, I'm fine, I said as I hurriedly entered the hallway the scent was coming from. The bathroom's this way, Carly shouted, but I was too distracted by the scent. I quickly followed the natural, earthy scent that reminded me of the forest to the end of the hall. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Milban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I didn't know what it was, but my wolf got extremely excited. She kept repeating herself over and over again. My anxiety was building up and I found myself getting excited over finding my other half. I wondered who it could be, and I could no longer contain myself. I turned the corner and immediately stopped when I saw Daniel, Lucas, and Jeremy standing next to the closed door of a classroom. My eyes met Danielle's and I couldn't look away. That's him. That's our mate. Jeremy and Lucas looked at me and smiled. Well, see you later, Jeremy said with a grin as they both walked off. Daniel slowly approached me, my eyes still glued onto him. He took one last step and finally stopped when he was right in front of me, only inches away, in a low, resonating voice that sent shivers down my spine. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Milban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Milban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Chapter 6, Mate. My parents died when I was little, so I was put under the care of my uncle. He wasn't my uncle by blood, but we were very close and it didn't matter that he wasn't my mother's real brother. However, after he got rejected by his mate, he completely changed. He became cold and heartless. At first he would only yell at me, but he began hitting me as well, and AGS tried sexually harassing me several times. Luckily, I've managed to escape every time. As a result, I've grown up knowing much about my pack, and not knowing much about myself either. I don't know the names of my parents, or of any other relatives I may have. I also don't understand the whole concept of mates. And here I am now, inches away from my mate, driven by lust and desire, yet not knowing what to do. Our eyes were locked together, and time felt like it had stopped around us. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart, and all I could see was him. His scent was strong, so much that it was driving me insane. I stood frozen in place as he slowly lifted his hand to touch my face. He lightly brushed my cheek with his fingers, sparks igniting between us at contact. Next thing I knew, he had pulled me into a hug. He held me as if I would disappear if he let me go. My body felt like it was on fire, and I instinctively wrapped my arms around him, hugging him back tightly. You don't know how long I've been wanting to do this for. I've endured so much while waiting to finally have you in my arms. Daniel murmured against my cheek, causing shivers to run down my spine. I finally understand. I understand why he said what he said yesterday. and I understand why I felt whenever we touched. It was all because HES, my mate. My wolf was jumped at the joy of finding her soulmate. We found our mate. At that moment, in his arms, I felt complete. I wanted to stay like this forever. I wanted to kiss him and have him all to myself. But I couldn't let that happen. My wolf's emotions mixed with my own, and for a while let myself get caught up in the excitement. But when I started to think, I realized all the problems that lay ahead because he was my mate. I couldn't be with him knowing he liked someone else, that someone being Carly, who likes him as well. The thought of them being together was enough to make my heart ache. But I couldn't do this to Carly. She was the only family I had. I pushed him away, causing my wolf to whimper. I saw the hurt in his eyes, which made my heart break. I can't. I cried out, then quickly turned around and ran down the hall while fighting back tears. My wolf howled in pain as I ran away from our mate. Our wolves yearned to be together, but that was going to happen. I painfully continued down the hall. The further away I got from him, the more I wanted to run back to him and jump into his arms. Before I realized it, I was outside my classroom. I wiped my eyes and straightened up. I entered the classroom like nothing had happened. Lauren. Late again. The bell rang 8 minutes ago. Mr. Castle said, looking at me, then back at his computer. I didn't reply and quietly took my seat and sat next to Carly. She looked at me worriedly. What happened? Do you feel sick? Carly asked as she placed a hand on my forehead. I blankly shook my head. I was sick. Just in a lot of pain. My wolf was doing good right now. Plus she was angry at me. I want to be with mate. I know how important this is to you, but I can't be with Daniel if he has eyes for someone else. Especially if that someone else is Carly. I won't let you reject him. Rejection. I hadn't thought about that. But if anyone's gonna be rejected, listen to me. Don't be an idiot. He would never do that to us. You're just being selfish. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I didn't hear from her for a long time. Having your wolf angry at you really sucks. She was right. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. In being selfish, I want Daniel, but at the same time I don't want to lose Carly. That's why I need to stay away from him for Carly's sake, no matter how much it hurts. I look back and see Daniel's friend Jeremy sitting all alone, looking worried. Then I realized I had Daniel for this period. Why isn't he in class? No, it's probably best that he isn't here. I wouldn't know what to do. It's best if I try to avoid him. Jeremy looked at me, and I quickly turned away. My thoughts were filled with Daniel. I even began imagining what life with him would be like. But I shouldn't expect any of that to happen. I spent the whole period dozing off, and in the end I didn't get anything done. When the bell rang, I collected my stuff and parted ways with Carly. As I left the classroom, someone grabbed my arm. I quickly turned around and saw Jeremy. What happened with Daniel? Why didn't he come to class? Sounding worried and a bit angry. Probably at me. I quickly turned away, but in a louder, more angry and demanding voice. Where is he? I kept my head low, feeling like I was committing a crime for not being able to answer his question. I whimpered as his strong gaze felt like it was burning a hole in me. I shook off his hand and quickly ran off. What he said had me worried. Daniel didn't show up to class, and not even Jeremy knew where he was. I found myself wondering where he was and hoping he was okay. I planned to avoid Daniel, but I hadn't seen him at all today after what happened. When the last bell rang, I left my class and headed to the parking lot with Nate, where Carly was already waiting for us. When we reached the parking lot, I caught a whiff of the heavenly scent that made my wolf go crazy. It was Daniel. I frantically looked around, and when I spotted him, my heart stopped. He looked terrible. His hair was messy and all over the place, and he looked like he had just gotten run over by a bus. When he spotted me, he rushed over to me. I jumped and quickly took a few steps back. I was about to turn and run away, but I tripped over my own feet and fell on my ass. Daniel fell on his knees in front of me and grabbed my arms. "I won't let you reject me," he yelled. He looked like he was in so much pain, and his eyes were pleading me to accept him. Seeing him like this broke my heart. I wanted to pull him into a hug and tell him everything was going to be all right. I didn't want my mate to suffer. "What the hell?" Nate muttered as he watched Daniel. I whimpered seeing my mate like this and reached my hand out to touch his face, but quickly pulled it away, before it would get any more painful. I pushed him away and ran to Carly, who was waiting in Nate's car. Daniel remained on the floor of the parking lot, and Nate hurried over to us as fast as he could with his crutches. He opened the door to the passenger's side, since Carly was in the driver's seat, and slumped inside. Then he threw his crutches to the back, one hitting me on the head. "In driving, since I don't trust you, and a weak ass broke and leg of yours," Carly said as stuck her hand out, asking for his keys. I looked to where I had that encounter with Daniel seconds ago, and he was just motionless lie sitting there in the same position I had left him. My heart ached painfully, and I wondered if some of the pain I was feeling was his. I didn't want him to suffer, and yet the reason HES suffering is me. We're mates, and even though we haven't known each other for long, we have a very special bond that can only be severed by death. I had never really given the whole mate thing much thought. I didn't really think much of it, but now it made me feel as lonely as the day my parents died. I don't remember much from the time they were still alive, but I do remember being happy and innocent. Once again, I felt empty. After I was taken in by my uncle, the feeling of loneliness disappeared for a short while, until 2 years later he started acting coldly and into a complete monster. Then, I fell into an even worse state of loneliness. That's when Carly invited me to her house, and everything changed. I became a part of her family, and I finally felt like I belonged somewhere. I would never do anything to hurt the one person who gave me a home when I had nowhere to go. It doesn't matter how much pain you're in, as long as you won't have to suffer. "Lauren, are you listening?" Nate asked as he looked back at me. "Oh, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Thoughts out thanks to your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I replied as I looked down and played with the hem of my skirt. "What was up with Daw?" Nate tried to ask, but I quickly covered his mouth before he could say Daniel. "Don't say his name," I whispered as I continued to cover his mouth. He made a confused look, and I gestured toward Carly. He sighed and nodded, agreeing to keep quiet. I let him go and patted his head like a dog. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "What took you guys so long?" Carly asked as she started Nate's car. She somehow managed to convince him to let her drive his precious car. "Horan had to take another shit," Nate said with a smirk. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Seriously?" Again, Carly ridiculed as she looked at me with surprise. I sighed and shook my head at them. As Carly left the parking lot, I turned to take one last look at Daniel, but he was already gone. Chapter 7: The Plan. Carly and I arrived at her house and watched as Nate shifted into the driver's seat, waved, then drove off. "If we don't see him tomorrow at school, it'll probably be because he crashed and died," Carly said as she put her hands on her hips. She smiled and turned to me. "Anyways, let's go inside." I nodded and followed her inside, except that she didn't let me inside, but to her garage. What are we doing here?" I asked as she slowly pulled open the garage door. Once the door fully opened, I saw a white convertible next to her red sedan with a big, red ribbon on top. Carly, what's going on?" I asked with confusion written all over my face. She grinned and shouted excitedly, "That's your new car." I looked at her with wide eyes and opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She waved a hand in front of my face and asked, "Lauren, you okay there?" When I could finally speak, "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Wait, are you sure why? She chuckled and answered, because you need it. I can't always be giving you rides. Although we do go almost everywhere together. I smiled and hugged Carly. Thanks. Carly, you're amazing. You didn't have to do all this for me. You know. Of course I did. You're the one person I couldn't live without. I had to do something big and show you how important you are to me, she said softly. I stiffened at Carly's words. I was as important to her as she was to me. I sniffled as I felt tears begin to surface. Then I thought about Daniel. He was my mate, but I wouldn't let him come between me and Carly no matter what. Thanks, Carly, I murmured, letting the tears roll down my cheeks. I hugged her tighter as I began to cry. I was happy Carly thought of me that way, but at the same time I was upset about my position. I felt like I was being torn between two sides. In this situation, was there a way for everyone to be happy? Carly pulled away from our hug and looked at me. She frowned, then tiptoed to wipe my tears from my eyes. Hey, why are you crying? She asked worriedly. To my agent extraordinaire, Marilyn Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'm just happy you feel that way about me, I said with a smile. Sorry, Lauren, I'm not into girls, she clarified. I laughed at her idiocy. Anyways, let's take your car for a spin, she beamed. Well, first I'm going to need to learn how to drive, I said sheepishly. What? She shouted. I've never been taught how to drive. I thought you knew that. What about when Anthony was teaching me to drive? Weren't you paying attention? She exclaimed and slapped her palm against her forehead. I crossed my arms and replied, how was I supposed to learn from the back seat? Besides, my 15-year-old self was always tired. I spent most of the time napping in the back, while you ran into street lamps and old ladies' hay. I only ran over one old lady. It's just that I ran over her twice. But it's because she basically jumped in front of the car. Carly defended. Carly, she was standing next to her mailbox, getting her mail, and you just drove onto the sidewalk and knocked her down like a bowling pin. I reminded her. Shut up, you rat, Carly shouted. I sighed at her immatureness, but smiled as everything was beginning to feel normal again. Well, except for the constant throbbing of my heart due to my wolf yearning for our mate and the emptiness I felt inside. To my agent extraordinaire, Marilyn Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You'll get used to it. Well, I guess I should ask Anthony to give you driving lessons, Carly said with a sigh. I doubt he is gonna want to. Oh, trust me. He will, Carly said, smiling. I looked at her suspiciously, but she just continued smiling. Let's go inside, Carly said before taking my hand and dragging me inside. When we entered, Carlos came up to us from the kitchen. Hey girls, has Carly showed you your present? Laurie Pooh, he asked with a familiar smile that always reminded me of Carly's. I ignored the nickname and replied, thank you, Carlos. I assume it was Carly's idea. Well, that's true. But Iris and I agreed on it. You're an irresponsible adult. And we thought you deserved it. Carlos gushed. Thank you, I repeated with a smile. Can I have my friend back now? Carly asked irritatedly, pulling on my arm. Carlos laughed and said, sure, food will be ready in half an hour. Carly dragged me up the stairs, where we ran into Anthony. Oh, Anthony, you're going to be giving law and driving lessons starting tomorrow. Carly ordered and pulled me to her room. Before we could enter, Anthony asked, why should I do it? See, I told you he wouldn't want to do it. I mumbled to Carly. Carly smiled and said, I guess we'll just get someone else to teach her. She'll be very thankful to whoever he is. She opened the door to her room. But before we could enter, Anthony spoke. Wait, if you need me so much, I guess it wouldn't hurt to help. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Laura needs my help, he announced, acting all high and mighty. Thanks, I said with a smile, despite his cocky attitude, causing his eyes to go wide before quickly looking away. Carly grinned devilishly, then pulled me into her room, closing the door behind us. Carly and I quickly exited her car. If we didn't hurry up, we would be late for school again. It was barely Thursday, which meant we had second period with our crusty math teacher, MSGRC. Luckily we didn't have school tomorrow, since it was a holiday. It also meant I wouldn't have to try so hard to avoid Daniel tomorrow. I've come up with the perfect plan on how to avoid him. If I ever catch his scent, I'll go the opposite direction. During gym, I'll either go to the nurse and say I feel sick or help out in the office, which are both good excuses to skip class. I could also use this excuse during first period and third period, and during sixth period. I could just skip out since the substitute doesn't take roll anyways. That covered all the classes I had with Daniel. I was actually pretty proud of myself, coming up with this whole plan was so easy. You know. Hurry up. Corinne. We'll be late. Carly yelled as she pulled my arm. Sorry, Carly. I know I'll be lying to you, but it's for a good cause. Oh wow. I yelled and stopped running behind Carly, causing her to stop as well. I wrapped my arms around my stomach and tightly closed my eyes, wrinkling up my nose to make it seem like I was in pain. Carl Oren. What's wrong? Carly asked worriedly. I guess it's working. My stomach suddenly started hurting. It hurts so bad. I grimaced. Do you want to go home? Should I take you to the nurse? What if you die? Can I keep your body in my closet? I won't do anything weird with it. Carly ranted. Now I was the one worried. Am I really safe around Carly? It's just a stomach ache. I think you'll be fine. I'm going to head to the nurse though. I probably won't make it to gym either. Just tell the teacher and coach him with the nurse, I said to Carly and began slowly walking to the nurse's office. You don't need help getting there? Carly asked, and I felt her worried stare without having to look at her. It'll be fine. You should get to class. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, I said without turning around. I heard Carly's steps as she continued towards our class alone. When I reached the nurse's office, I looked around but no one was there. I entered the main office and asked, To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Do you know where the nurse is? Sorry, she's not in yet. But if you don't feel well you can lie down for now. The office lady Mrs. Rogers said with a smile. I nodded and entered the nurse's office again. I lied down on the bed they had there. It was more of a bench. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It was so fucking hard. It felt like I was lying on the floor. It wasn't long before my thoughts consumed me. What was I doing? I was going so far to avoid Daniel. I could have faced him and told him the situation I was in. He should understand since he is my mate. Here I am avoiding him like the plague. I'm too scared to face him. I'm scared of getting hurt. Or more importantly hurting him. Although I guess I already done that. I'm also scared of not being able to part with him if I do face him. We're mates, so we share a very special bond. If I'm with him for too long, I'm scared I won't be able to leave his side. It's best if I just stay away. I also felt bad about lying to Carly about it. No, about everything. She doesn't know I'm a werewolf, but I obviously can't tell her that. She doesn't know that my uncle is treating me badly. She doesn't know the boy she has a crush on is the person I'm meant to spend the rest of my life with. She doesn't know how much we're suffering because we're apart. I feel bad keeping her in the dark about so many things, but it can't be helped. I just can't tell her about these things. The door opened and a short boy with dark black hair and deep blue eyes entered. When he saw me, he jumped and tried to hide himself in his hood. I sat up and said, the nurse isn't here yet. I know where my medication is. He replied so softly I could barely hear him. He cautiously walked in and opened one of the cabinets on the other side of the room. I saw him tiptoe to take out a small box. He opened it and took out a medicine bottle. He opened the cabinet next to that one and took out a small plastic measuring cup. He carefully poured some of the medicine into the tiny cup and quickly drank it. Then, he quickly put everything away and rushed out without a word. That boy was strange. He seemed very uneasy and anxious. Also, he barely talked at all. I know I don't know him or anything, but he only talked when he replied to what I had to say. He looked really young and had a small figure. A Chias, probably a freshman or sophomore. I wonder what he needs medication for. Could it be anything serious? My curiosity left when the nurse entered. When she saw me, the corners of her lips stubbed up, exposing her white teeth. "Hey, Arrington. It's been a long time since you've last been in here," she said with a smile. I smiled back at the nurse, Madison, and replied, "I guess I've been taking better care of myself. You're not pretending to be sick again, are you?" she asked as she eyed me suspiciously. "No, don't worry. I used to fake being sick in my sophomore year," to Skipsack said. No one wanted to sit and listen to Mr. He talk about the genus for 2 whole hours. Most of the times I was in here. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Was when classmates would notice bruises on my arms and legs. They always told me I should go to the nurse and get them checked out. I told everyone they were because I was clumsy and would always trip over my own feet, when in reality I had them because of Raphael. I began covering them up more and people started caring less. So eventually I stopped having to come here. It was actually a relief, since I didn't have to worry about anyone finding out about my uncle. "Okay, I believe you. You can just lie down until you feel better. I'll be at my desk," she said and entered the small room where her desk and computer were at. I did as she said and laid down again. I felt bad for lying to her, especially since she's always been so nice to me. I couldn't face Daniel though. I was too much of a wimp. I was going to carry out with my plan for as long as possible. I rolled over to face the wall and closed my eyes. I was going to sleep. I just needed to close my eyes for a bit. I told myself that. But of course, I ended up falling asleep. Chapter 8 Lessons. "I told you to hit the brake," and Foley yelled as he held on to the handle attached to the roof of the car. I quickly hit the brake, causing the car to come to a sudden stop with a loud screech. And Thorny placed his hand over his heart and took a deep breath. After he calmed down, he yelled, "Are you trying to kill us? It's not my fault. You didn't explain how to do this correctly." I defended. "That's why you should have been listening." And Thorny shouted, "Geez, why am I here anyways?" He sighed and asked himself. I answered, "You agreed to it. Remember, why did you agree to it?" Seriously wondering why the hell he decided to help me, he looked away and muttered, "Because I wanted to spend some time with you." I don't think I was supposed to hear that. If it wasn't for my werewolf hearing, I probably wouldn't have heard it. I didn't know what he meant by it. But I decided to pretend I didn't hear anything. I didn't want to make it awkward. "What did you say?" Acting like I really didn't hear anything. "Nothing," he said and looked at me. "Are we done for today? I want to go already. We've been doing this for 4 hours already." I complained, "No. We're not stopping until I say we can." Not giving me a choice. But I'm tired of this. And Carly's not here to make this fun. I whined. It's not my fault she decided not to tag along. And Thorny stated. I grumbled. "This is boring. You're no fun." And he finally gave in. He sighed and said, "If you can make it to the store 2 streets down without messing up, I'll buy you ice cream and we can take a break." "Yay, I can take a break and get free ice cream," I said with a smile. He shook his head and smiled. You and Carly are both so childish, he remarked. Yeah, whatever, I said as I moved the gear shifter from parking to drive. I pressed on the gas pedal and slowly turned the steering wheel. I joined the rest of the cars on the main road and cautiously drove down the street. You're doing good. Just keep your focus on the road, Anthony said as he watched my hands on the steering wheel. Once we had reached the convenience store, I carefully pulled up to the side of the road and somewhat aligned myself with the sidewalk. I moved the gear shifter to P and leaned back onto the seat, letting out a sigh of relief. That could have ended horribly. I told to Anthony, who was looking at me proudly. Luckily it didn't. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, he said in response to my witty remark. He continued, anyways, you made it without running into any posts or old ladies. Not bad. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Hey, I'm not Carly. I haven't run over any old ladies yet. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Causing him to laugh, he opened the door and got out the car. And I did the same. We entered the convenience store, and when we got to the freezer section, I excitedly looked through all of the options, and Folly slid open the glass door and took out a watermelon-flavored popsicle. Meanwhile, I was trying to decide between 3 different items. Should I get a cone, cookies and cream popsicle, or an ice cream sandwich? I asked as my eyes wavered between all 3. Anthony replied, I would say the cone since it's the least expensive. You cheap twat, I teased as I flicked his forehead. Hey, don't treat me as if I'm younger than you, he protested and flicked me back. I crossed my arms, then opened the glass door and took out an ice cream sandwich. I held it up and told him, I'm getting this one, and it just so happens to be the most expensive one. I grinned then headed to the cashier. I didn't have to turn around to know he was rolling his eyes at me. I stood behind a boy who was a little shorter than me, wearing a familiar navy blue hood. He was frantically searching his backpack, obviously looking for something. The cashier looked angry, and he had his arms crossed over his chest, irritated lie. I am sorry. I can't find my wallet, the boy said in a soft, trembling voice. It sounded familiar. Where have I heard it? He nervously played with his sweater, trying to hide himself in his hood. Wait, isn't that? I took a peek at his face and immediately recognized him. He was the boy at the nurse's office. Those blue eyes and dark black hair were unforgettable. Anthony joined me in the line and whispered, What's going on? I ignored his question and commanded, Give me your wallet. I put my hand out, and he reluctantly pulled it out of his pocket and gave it to me. I checked the cash register for the amount, then pulled out a $20 bill. I walked up to the cashier and handed it to him. This is for the boy's items, I said as I took the bag from the counter and gave it to the boy whose name I still didn't know. The cashier slowly took the bill and looked at me as if I was an alien or something. He was going to give me $4 back of change. But I said, Keep it. That's to pay for our ice cream. I took Anthony's hand and placed my other hand on the boy's shoulder and dragged both of them out. Once we were outside, I let go of Anthony's sweaty hand, who had for some reason intertwined his fingers with mine. I looked at the boy, and he was staring at me with a mix of surprise and confusion. Why did you help me? He asked as he tightened his grip on his back. I couldn't just stand there and let you walk off without your items, I said as I patted his head, causing his hood to fall back. Anthony butted it. Hey, don't forget I was the one who paid for it. The boy lowered his head and murmured, Thank you. No problem. Just don't forget your wallet next time, I said with a smile. He looked up and smiled at me. It was the most adorable thing ever. I've got to go now, but thank you, he said again and quickly hurried down the street, until he turned the corner and disappeared from sight. I turned to Anthony, who was shaking his head at me. Although he did have a faint smile on his lips, I ignored him and asked, Should we go back to the car? No eating ice cream there is boring. Besides, I don't want you getting ice cream all over the place. Dad will get me in trouble. Then where are we gonna go? He pointed to a park across the street and said, To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I followed him as he started crossing the street. When we reached the other side, we saw a small, rustic playground. There was a miniature slide, monkey bars, a rock climbing area that I could probably just step over, and a swing set with 2 lonely swings. We both took a seat on the swings and began eating our ice cream. Luckily there were no kids around. The playground did seem old and worn down, so I doubt any kids would want to use it anyways. As I used my feet to push myself forward a bit, Anthony asked, Do you know what you're going to do after high school? I looked at him and asked, Why such a serious question? I just want to know. Believe it or not, Carly has already applied to a few colleges. So far, just gotten accepted into one. Oh yeah, she told me about it last week. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I continued. As for me, we don't really go to college, but am actually considering it. Werewolves usually have a role in their pack, so after high school they just dedicate themselves to their pack. I was really a part of my pack. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. So I don't really think it matters if I leave or not. I don't even think my pack knows I exist. Besides, I want to leave my uncle. I want to be as far away from him as possible. Anthony asked as he raised an eyebrow. My eyes went wide when I realized what I had said. Shit. Think of something fast. What do I say? What do I say? I meant, shit, was all that came out of mouth. He chuckled and said, You mean you werewolves? I stopped stuttering and felt my jaw drop to the floor. My eyes were fixated on him, and I was at a loss for words. He laughed and with a wide grin said, Your face right now is priceless. I stuttered. You see, he began explaining, I have a friend who's a werewolf. I caught him in the form of his wolf inside his room once. I was going to call the police, but he shifted back and showed me it was him. He made me promise not to tell anyone. Of course I was shaken up a bit at first, but I've accepted it. He explained everything to me. He told me about your wolves and pack, and about how you can shift. One time, he came over. You and Carly were in her room, and he said there was the scent of another werewolf inside. I was scared at first, thinking someone had snuck in, but it turned out to be you. I just stared at him, taking in all the information. When I finally spoke, Your friend, was it that Jason guy? I knew he was a werewolf because of his scent, but I didn't confront him about it. I can't believe he told you about himself. And about me. Yeah, it was him. Don't worry. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I won't tell anyone. I've kept his secret. And you'll keep yours. I have one question though. Does Carly know? I shook my head. I haven't told her. And I don't plan to. That's good. I don't want her getting involved in all this werewolf drama you guys have. How long have you known? He replied, A few months. When I went to go visit his dorm at the college we attend is when I found out about him. I found out about you 2 weeks later. I looked down at the sand under our feet. A bunch of questions ran through my head. Why hadn't he told me anything earlier? Was he really going to keep quiet about it? Had he told his parents? Was his friend from the same pack as me? Anthony placed his hand on my head and ruffled up my hair. Hey, what are you doing? I yelled as I attempted to swat his hand away. He stopped and said, Just act like you usually do. It doesn't really matter to me. He smiled at me, and with a sigh I let out all my feeling of uneasiness. He was right. I didn't have to worry. It was just Anthony. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It would be a real problem if Carly found out. With myself back to normal. Remember when we were in the car earlier? I asked you why you agreed to help me and you said you wanted to spend time with me. Now what could that have meant? I had a huge smirk on my face. His eyes wide and a light shade of red slowly covered his face. You heard that? He yelled. Yet so. I want an explanation. I just wanted to talk to you about college, he said slowly. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilbe. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. That was it. We could have just done that at home. You're so stupid. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Shaking my head. He sighed and I looked at my ice cream that was now mostly melted. I frowned and looked at his, which was still perfectly fine. Because of you my ice cream melted. I whined. How is that my fault? He asked defensively. I yelled. Because you distracted me. I stood up and snatched his ice cream, handing him my melted one. I sat back down and happily ate his ice cream, when I caught him looking at me. What? That's an indirect K. You know what? I won't say anything. He looked at my ice cream sandwich and said, It's not that melted. You're just picky. I ignored him and finished the last of his ice cream. Maybe I should have kept mine. His tasted a little weird. I took the now bare popsicle stick and tossed it into a nearby trash can without getting up. I smiled proudly when I made it in. He took the empty wrapper in his hand and balled it up. He aimed at the trash can, and despite being farther away from it than me, still made it. You actually ate it. I'm not as picky as you. I scowled at him, causing him to laugh. He stood up and said, Time to continue your driving lessons. No, I don't want to. I protested, but he grabbed my hand and forcefully pulled me up. Too bad. Our break's been long enough already. He pulled me behind him and we headed back to the car. You better have your weekend free, 'cause you'll be busy learning how to drive with your amazing teacher. No, I was supposed to go to the movie theater with Carly on Sunday. I objected. He taunted. Too bad. You'll be stuck in that boring old car with me. I was crying on the inside. It was going to be the most boring weekend ever. I wanted to go and watch the new action movie coming out with Carly, but instead I was stuck with this old fart. How sad. What a waste of a perfectly good 3-day weekend. Chapter 9, The Two Hall. Anthony was kidding when he said he would force me to spend the whole weekend with him, learning how to drive. The good thing is that I actually got a lot better. On Thursday, I had successfully managed to avoid Daniel. Monday was also a success, and easier since I'd only had one class with him. Today was going to be a bit hard. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Since I've been using the nurse excuse way too much, the nurse herself was even starting to get suspicious. I didn't know how much longer I could keep this up. It wasn't easy that, with every day that passed, my longing for him would only grow. My wolf was annoyed and uneasy. She still wouldn't talk to me, and there was nothing I could do to calm her down. The nurse came out of her office and said, If you're feeling well enough, could you take this to Mr. Sure. Which room is he in? I asked as I took the envelope from her hands. She replied, She is in room 156.156. That's in the 10th grey hall. I heard it gets wild over there. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They'll be back soon, I said and walked out. After I left the room, I walked down the hall cautiously, looking out for Daniel's scent. Everyone was currently in 6th period, so I should be fine since our Spanish class is the other way. I still had to be careful. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Once I reached the end of the hallway, I took a right turn into the 3-hole. I stopped when I almost ran into a boy with greasy black hair that was messily hanging over his eyes and dirt smeared all over his face and clothes. He reeked of dirty sewage water and dead rats. It was gross scary. I took a few steps back once the horrid smell crept its way into my nose. My enhanced wolf senses weren't making it any better. He looked at me and smiled creepily. "Do you want to play with me?" he asked in a high-pitched voice. I pinched my nose and replied, "Oh, no thanks. I'm good." I tried to walk past him, but he grabbed my wrist with his slimy hands. I quickly escaped from his grip and wiped my arm on my jeans. He had left a black handprint on my wrist, which now stained my jeans. I gagged when he stuck his finger into his nose. He pulled it out and showed me what was on his finger. I quickly looked away when I saw the green on the tip of his finger. "If I give you this, will you play with me?" he asked and brought his finger closer to me. "Stay away from me," I yelled as I took a few more steps back. He frowned and looked down, then went completely silent for a few seconds. I didn't know what to do, so I just continued stepping backwards. Hopefully he wouldn't notice. Just when I thought I would get away, his head snapped up. He began running after me, chasing me with his booger-infested finger. I jumped and quickly ran away from him. I ran down the hall, and when I reached the end I took a turn to the left. I looked behind me and he was still after me. He grinned and picked up his pace. All I saw was a blur, and next thing I knew he was right behind me. I yelped, then reflexively punched him in the face. He fell backwards onto the floor with a loud thud. I stopped running and slowly crept towards him. I kneeled in front of him, ignoring the strong smell coming from him. His eyes were closed and his nose was bleeding. Was one punch all it took to knock him out? I almost fell backwards when I saw his head was bleeding. A small puddle of blood was starting to form under his head. Oh, is he dead? What should I do? Will I be jailed if he dies? I looked around desperately. Luckily no one else was here. I reluctantly grabbed his arm and dragged his heavy body to one of the many janitor's closets throughout the school. I opened the door and stood his unconscious body up. I pushed him into the closet and quickly shut the door. I heard his head slam against the door and his body collapse onto the floor. That must be hurt. I looked around, and when I made sure no one was in sight, I continued walking as if nothing had happened. It's best if this never spoken of again. I entered the 2-hole and immediately saw a bunch of sophomores fill up the hallway. Aren't they supposed to be in class? I walked past a couple making out in the hall. The guy had the girl pushed up against the wall with her legs wrapped around his waist. He was grinding into her and they were both moaning loudly. I walked faster past them, but was met by another problem. There were 2 girls in front of me pulling each other's hair and slapping each other. One of them yelled, "You bitch. You broke my nail." They continued pulling each other's hair, and they both stumbled backwards, falling down. I slowly walked around the 2 fighting girls. Luckily, no one seemed to notice me. I looked at the numbers on the doors and realized I forgot Mr. Hunt's room number. Shit. What was it again? It was to something. 240, no. That wasn't it. 250. No, but it was close to that. Oh, 8. It was 256. Or at least I think it was. I stood outside the noisy room and knocked on the door, which suddenly went quiet. Okay, I just need to give him the envelope and I'll be on my way. The sooner the better. But where's the envelope? I looked at my empty hands and began to panic. What the fuck? Where did it go? I swear, I had it a moment ago. I sighed in relief when I felt it in my back pocket. But when exactly did I put it there? After waiting outside for a while, I knocked again. Still no response. I opened the door since no one was going to open it. I jumped when I saw the eyes of all the students on me. They were all in a circle surrounding something. Or someone. Inside their circle was Mr. Hunt, who was sitting on the floor with his hands tied behind his back and duct tape over his mouth. Their eyes were telling me that if I tried to help, I would end up like him. I slowly entered the classroom without saying a word. Their eyes followed my every movement as I made my way to his desk. I quietly put the letter down, then turned and walked out, I let out a sigh once the door closed behind me. I heard everyone get loud again and decided to leave immediately. I quickly walked down the dangerous hallway, just when I thought I was going to make it. I felt someone cover my mouth. Then I was pulled into a small, dark room and the door closed quietly. I had landed on my ass, along with the person who was in here with me. I looked back and saw a girl with long blonde hair and a scary look on her face. Her smelly hands remained over my mouth, preventing me from saying anything. When she finally spoke, Law and Annie L. Arrington, age 18 as of 6 days ago. Friends are Carly Rose, Nathan Travis Ledger, and Julie and Aran Anderson. Weak, no striking characteristics. Boring and plain. How was she talking about me? Who is she calling boring and plain? You have no appealing traits. So why does it have to be you? She shouted, causing me to jump and surprise her. I said against her hand, causing it to come out muffled. He was crying because of you. That day in the parking lot. He fell on his knees for you. He was in so much pain and it was all your fault. She yelled with tears streaming down her face. Wait, was she talking about Daniel? She glared at me and in a low, menacing voice, she warned, you've better stay away from Daniel from now on. I don't want to see you near him. Do you know how much pain you caused him? If I ever see you with him again, I won't hesitate to kill you. Who does this girl think she is? She can't tell me to stay away from him. Wait, isn't that exactly what I've been doing? I'm going to such great lengths just to avoid him. I know I've hurt him, but I'm just trying to do what's best for everyone. The girl removed her hand from my mouth and opened the door. Next thing I knew, I was literally kicked out. Her foot struck my back and I landed on the floor of the hall. The door slammed shut behind me. I slowly stood up and rubbed my back. What a bitch. I worked my way back to the nurse's office obstinately. Who was she? All I know is that she's a sophomore, since she was in that hall. Besides, she didn't look old enough to be the same age as me. What was wrong with her? She's crazy, just like the rest of them. If not, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Does she like Daniel? Why else would she do that? My wolf was ignoring me, but I could still feel her. She was not happy that someone told us not to be with mate. She was beyond irritated, but I wouldn't let her emotions affect mine. When I entered the nurse's office again, I found the boy from the other day sitting on a chair next to the resting bed, drinking his medicine. When he turned to me, I smiled back and sat down on the edge of the bed, facing him. Hey, I said. He looked down and shyly replied, Hey, I haven't had the chance to before, but what's your name? He looked up and blushed when he said, Evan. Evan, I feel like that really suits you, I said with a smile. W, what's yours? He stuttered. Oh, mine's Lauren. He pulled down his hood and said, Thank you, Lauren, for helping me the other day at the store. I'll pay you back the money. You don't need to pay me back, but I can't let you. I said it's fine. I interrupted and ruffled his hair. He smiled and said, I hope I didn't cause you and your boyfriend trouble. I stopped messing with his hair and yelled, Her boyfriend? No, you've got it wrong. H.E.'s not my boyfriend. He grinned and teased. You don't need to be shy. I'm not. H.E.'s just my best friend's older brother. I yelled defensively. Oh, that must be complicated. He continued teasing me. Because H.E.'s not my boyfriend. Why, he laughed. I raised an eyebrow, asked, To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Where did this sudden confidence come from? He blushed and immediately looked down. No, you don't need to apologize. You can be yourself around me. No need to be shy, I reassured. He looked back up and smiled at me. You're a freshman, right? I doubt you're a sophomore since they're all fucking deranged. He chuckled and replied, Yeah, I am. You're right about those sophomores being crazy. I have a few classes with the ones who failed their freshman classes last year. They turned the classroom into a zoo. If sounds rough. Luckily I don't have to see them often. Although today I did have a not-so-fun experience. By the way, if you don't mind me asking, what's the medicine for? I asked as I pointed to the bottle in his hands. Oh, it's for my headaches. I have to drink it daily or else they get so bad I can't even stand up and pass out. Is it really that bad? He nodded. Yeah, but I've gotten used to it. I smiled and said, You're a tough one, aren't you? I playfully ruffled up his hair again, causing him to laugh. The door suddenly burst open with a loud bang. Evan and I jumped in surprise, and when an all too familiar scent that put my wolf on a euphoric high made its way to my nose, I quickly snapped my head in his direction. Daniel was standing at the entrance, my breath caught in my throat when my eyes fell upon his disheveled, messy figure. His hair was all over the place and facial hair threatened to grow and take over the lower half of his face. He was glaring at me, and I quickly removed my hand that was tangled in Evan's hair. In a low voice, "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." So this is where you've been hiding. I flinched when he began moving towards us quickly, anger written all over his face. My heart quickened with every step he took. He glared at Evan, then at me, causing my breath to hitch. His eyes were dark and brows deeply furrowed. I scooted back on the bed until my back hit the wall. He reached out his long, strong arms and next thing I knew everything was upside down. He had thrown me over his shoulder and was now beginning to walk away, taking me forcefully. "Lauren," I heard Evan yell. I kicked and punched, despite the pleasure I felt when our bodies touched after being apart for so long. I struggled against him, but nothing would work. And just like that, I was taken away.